So Nintendo of America flew me out to New York City for a preview event for the upcoming Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, which is a little odd because my channel has a grand total of 0 Metroid videos on it. Despite this though, I've played every game in the series and become rather opinionated on what I like and dislike about the Metroid formula. And seeing as my very first Metroid experience was the original Metroid Prime in 2002, I hold the Prime sub-series in especially high regard. When talking about Nintendo, she was basically everywhere in the early 2000s. But the 2000s was a long time ago. The world, and more importantly the gaming world, has changed considerably. Games are flashier and crazier than they've ever been before, and I won't lie, I was skeptical if a new 3D Metroid adventure could attract new fans and bring back old ones. Well, can Prime 4 do that? We'll talk about it. So at the Nintendo preview event, we had a brief period of checking out the handheld mode, which showed off the prologue segments. Then we were taken upstairs for the first level, Fury Green, on the planet Veros, which for the rest of the video, I'll be showing footage primarily of that, since the prologue was already shown off at a Nintendo Treehouse Live. So starting off, here we have some footage provided by Nintendo. I recorded some footage, was over the shoulder, it's not super engaging. So keep in mind, the footage you're seeing is not my playthrough, per se, but the first level's a little linear, so doesn't really make a big difference. So first thing you're going to notice right off the bat, and keep in mind, YouTube has compression. It's going to tank the visuals a little bit, but you start off in this incredibly lush forest. It's not necessarily uncommon for the Metroid games to start off that way, but you are seeing the Metroid Prime 4 Beyond Nintendo Switch 2 edition and all the graphic capabilities that come with the Nintendo Switch 2. Maybe it's because my display at home is covered in spit from me doing all these videos all day, and Nintendo's TVs are just like the best of the best, but in performance mode in particular, Prime 4 Beyond Nintendo Switch Edition, unbelievable. Not to discredit other games on the system, of course, but Prime's more realistic art direction lend itself to flexing the system's horsepower and the lighting capabilities, as opposed to something with less of a focus on realism, okay? Personally speaking, this is the first Switch 2 game where I've played where I was just really noticing the big jump from the Switch 1. And they're able to do this because, well, you're dealing with small-ish rooms where you can cram in a lot of detail into each frame, and you have these not necessarily fixed camera angles because you're moving around 3D, right? But they can design an area where your focal point will be drawn to these big scenic views like the giant tree in Fury Green. And yeah, Samus is here in Fury Green to look for a teleporter key. She has a general idea of where it is on her map, and she starts clearing through the jungle, blasting at baddies. If you played other Prime games, the moment-to-moment gameplay is very similar, right? You scan an enemy, then you blow it up, you shoot open a door, you get out of there, while navigating this 3D world in search of power-ups for your suit. Might sound familiar. That's because it is. We are given a few new toys to play with, namely Samus's psychic powers. During the initial reveal, if I remember correctly, they said, like, the first thing they said about these powers was, Samus can use it to open doors. And it's like, well, yeah, we've done that before. But as you might imagine, it's a little more involved than that. If anything, they're underselling the psychic powers. And I think that's because there's some, like, crazy ones they don't want to necessarily spoil, but use it to not only solve puzzles in Fury Green, but fight in combat, and there's also some secrets you get with these psychic powers, which I don't think the footage we have here will showcase, but I thought that was pretty clever. Usually, more often than not, you get power-ups, some of the optional ones like, health tanks, missile upgrades, that sort of thing, by just shooting a indescript block that looks a little out of place. One optional upgrade, which I got during my demo gameplay, I got by using a psychic power in a way that I didn't even think would work. I sort of did it by accident. I'm like, oh, that is really cool. Now, I'm sure there will be some upgrades that you get in kind of generic ways, but that did impress me. So story, we're in this, brand new place, as far as I understand, brand new setting. And I don't want to give away too many story details because that's still under embargo, but one thing that stood out to me in particular is the organic environmental storytelling that the Prime games are pretty much known for. One in particular, there's this bug, just scuttling along. You can't really interact with it because you don't have weapons in your ball form yet. And it's just trailing ahead of you, kind of getting out of your way. And you follow this path and you find the bug at the end of the path, but it's been attacked. But there's nothing around except this, looks like a tree. You blast the tree and, it's not attacking you. So it makes you think, what is going on here? That's the kind of storytelling I expect from the Prime series, right? A lot of the dialogue is, optional. You learn about the world through the scan visor. And this little scene was a smart way to create some suspense and also to tell and inform the player that, like, hey, you should keep your eyes out for stuff like that. But on the other side of storytelling, we have Mackenzie, a mechanic for the Galactic Federation. He's the most talkative and personality-filled Federation member we've had, in my opinion. And it's up to you if that's a pro or a con. I want to give him the benefit of the doubt, but as I said before, I'm more of a fan of the organic storytelling. But he's on this piece of machinery that I guess was sent into Fury Green. He doesn't really know how, doesn't know what's going on. He's got no other allies with him. So Samus shows up, defends him. It's all cool. They have a little bit of dialogue exchange. It's nothing too crazy. But there is an escort mission, which traditionally, let's be honest, they don't have the greatest reputation. There's this long bridge. Mackenzie's with you because, I can't leave him by himself. And it didn't happen during my playthrough because I'm the best gamer ever. But in this B-roll, we see that Mackenzie gets down. You have to use your psychic powers to, help him out and bring him back. So there's probably going to be more of these escort missions. Prime 3 had something similar, right? But it was a one-off moment, and I don't have a lot positive or negative to say about that segment. In theory, right, it's smart design. You interject some stress into the level because Samus, she's got all these health tanks, she's got all these missiles, she's so powerful. But if you have other people alongside her that aren't as powerful, yeah, there's a lot more risk involved. But looking back on it, if Mackenzie functions as some sort of timer, right? You have this segment where you're supposed to defend him. There's these aliens, and they're attacking from all directions, right? Which is something you can only really do in 3D. That type of escort mission in a 2D Metroid, you could do it, but it wouldn't really feel as great. And looking back on it, yeah, it was a bit frantic. I was like, oh gosh, is he helping? Is he, how is he taking damage? I don't know. I'm going as fast as I can. It was a good thing to throw in at the start. I'll just say it right now. Little too much banter.
One door is still locked. The other one is malfunctioning. Hey, but it's progress. Okay,
I really doubt they're going with like a buddy cop story angle, Mackenzie and Samus with Beyond, but man, it did feel like they were doing a little bit of that with the writing. But maybe, just maybe, he'll grow on me. And his inclusion in the story is he's there to be relatable for the player and he'll have an arc. It's always possible. He doesn't tag along the entire level, though, as you get some alone time to solve and think through some of the later puzzles of the level. One puzzle in particular, I can't believe it. I'm not ashamed to say I got stuck. And I was worried he'd, message me on the comms, Samus, I don't know, try to shoot with the purple thing, and just completely spoil me on the solution for the puzzle. I hate when games do that. Prime 4 did not. They had that restraint and respected their level design. I was genuinely happy to get stumped on a video game in a very long time. And figure it out myself. Because to me, the main appeal of these games, the firefights are fun and all, mostly about the puzzles and the boss fights, which the boss fights have puzzles. And speaking of bosses, we did get to challenge one in our playtime session, and it was a pretty good fight. We got to test out the control beam in a combat scenario, and it just, it's one of those fights where you have to use the ability, take down the guy. It was reminiscent a little bit to Flagra from Prime 1. Not necessarily the first boss in that game, but kind of, it was a plant, kind of angled the camera up a little bit so you could see it. A good test for the player, like, hey, do you truly understand how to use the control beam? In puzzles, sure, but what about moving targets? Didn't even know I could use it against not moving targets. Had a bunch of tentacles, as plants monsters often do, but you had to destroy them all in relatively the same time. And eventually this became impossible without the control beam, so it teases you, oh, crud, you can use that, and it freezes time. So you can angle this control beam and possibly deal with a lot of enemies all at once. That's so sick. Sometimes in games, you get upgrades, you don't really have a chance to use them in combat, right? Or, it's not very intelligent. It's more of a key for puzzles. The control beam, not the case. Super cool. Love doing that. And while we're on the topic, the control beam controls super well with the gesture controls, like the Prime 1 remaster. Lots of different ways to play this one. I did not get to check out the mouse mode. I really should have. Didn't think of it. I went for the classic controls, I guess, similar to the GameCube style, right? No gesture controls, just left and right analog sticks. But swapped over to gesture control. Ooh, I like that a lot. There's it looked like to be tons of different setups for whichever you prefer, so that's always nice. But there really isn't a lot to compare Metroid Prime to. It was very nostalgic to enter this, flow state, exploring these giant rooms and just blasting everything with this like great music playing and really immersing yourself in the environment. Obviously, many games nowadays pay a debt to Super Metroid by borrowing its style of just, all these rooms and this labyrinthian 2D style, but not so many draw inspiration for Prime, which at the end of the day ends up having Prime 4 feel very fresh and just, like they only get there's 5 of these games? If you count the DS one, Hunters. And after 30 minutes or so of gameplay, taking out a boss, that's not bad. I think it was a little less for me because I was damage boosting, trying to see more of the level faster. We see a solid return to form for the Metroid Prime sub-series. But I can't necessarily say the psychic abilities are groundbreaking. It seems like a cool gimmick. Any action game with puzzles needs some kind of gimmick, right? But will future psychic moves blow my mind, like the screw attack did back in the day? I hope so. I'm just saying I haven't seen that yet. If you love to scan things, have fun December 4th, because that is my initial takeaways, that this is more Prime. Everybody else, maybe never played a Prime before, I don't really know how to sell you on this game, if I'm being honest. If a friend was asking me, what makes this one different than Prime 1, right now with the information that I have currently, other than performance and visuals, not a lot. Which might sound harsh, but clearly they're holding some secrets for later. We didn't get to see anything about the motorcycle. What's going on with the motorcycle? Maybe that's the big takeaway. I don't know. And the original Prime 1, right? Getting from one side of the map to the other side, that was a pain in the butt. Maybe that's the motorcycle's purpose. I don't know. That makes sense. That is a mode of transportation. But now just about wrap up our preview and my initial thoughts. Thanks once again to Nintendo for the experience. And tell me, are you looking forward to Metroid Prime 4 Beyond? Will it be your first Metroid, or have you played them all? Until next time, everyone. Thanks for watching.